Hi everyone, I'm Lindsay and this is Oh My Scars, a podcast educating you on the everyday life of living with a disability. Now in today's episode, I wanted to talk about some of the aid tools or the aid products that I've used over the years. And on my Tumblr page, I will link some pictures of these items so you can go check that out on my Tumblr, which I'll give you the name for at the end here, but you can go on there and I'll have a page solely dedicated to the aid tools that I've used over the years, and some of them I still use to this day. Now the first big one and probably the most familiar one that I have used is a wheelchair. Now that one will be the most familiar because even a lot of able-bodied people have used wheelchairs because, maybe they broke a leg, or they have a child and they were pushed to their vehicle, or they had some sort of like surgery. And I know, at least on TV, it appears as though they don't let people leave the hospital by walking out, but I don't know if that's an actual thing. Yeah, so wheelchairs, everyone knows about a wheelchair. They've seen them everywhere. Yeah, but there are some that maybe people aren't aware of. And again, I'll make links, I'll put pictures and I'll put links to where if you want to purchase some of these items for your disabled child, or if you're a disabled person yourself and you want to use these items, you can go and get them yourself. The other thing that I had throughout the years was a scooter. Now there is a difference between a power wheelchair, which is also something that I had, a manual wheelchair, and then a power scooter. Now, a wheelchair, obviously a manual wheelchair is one that has the big wheels on the side, or sometimes it doesn't have big wheels on the side. Sometimes it just has the things in the back where someone can push the person that's in and around. My manual wheelchair doesn't have big wheels, but because of the lack of my upper body movement, I'm not able to push myself in a wheelchair even if it did have big wheels. So when we bought this one, we didn't see the point in getting one with the big wheels because I couldn't push it around myself anyhow. So it just has the handles on the back to where someone can push me around. So that is my current wheelchair, and I believe that we bought that one off of Amazon, if I'm not mistaken, because my other one was too heavy and it was very hard to put in the car for my parents. And this was before I had, before I was living out on my own. We'll get into that in another episode of why I ended up back at my parents' house at one point, but it was too heavy for them to put in the car. So we got a really lightweight one, and I believe we got it off of Amazon. So I'll try to find it. If not the exact model that I have, I'll find one similar to it so that you can see. Now, a power wheelchair looks just like a wheelchair, except the controls are on the side of like one of the armrests, and usually it's on the side that is the dominant hand for the person who'll be using it. So I'm right-handed. So my first power chair I got at 2 years old. It was custom built or custom made just for me. And I was taught how to drive it by my older brother. And I'll have, I believe that in the last episode, my mom actually talked about that, but I'll just go through it briefly again. He put some of my mom's nail polish on the joystick for it, on like the an arrow pointing forward, and then he put a bunch of towels on the kitchen floor, and he told me to push the joystick towards that arrow and to try to stay within the confines of the towels on the floor. And so after doing that over and over and over again, I eventually learned how to do it. And so that's how, at 2 years old, before I went to pre-K, and when I was 3, that's how I learned how to drive a motorized wheelchair at 2 years old. And according to the people who made the wheelchair, I was the youngest person at the time in the state of Louisiana that had a power wheelchair. Now, my mom will say that she's not sure how true that is, but that's what she was told. So, now, a scooter, if you think about a toy scooter, it basically looks just like that, but it has a seat on it, obviously, and the hand controls, instead of being on the side, it's in the front, and there's like a panel where you can like adjust the volume. No, you can adjust the speed, and usually instead of I've never seen one other than this kind, but instead of a joystick, it's like these levers that you push to go backwards and forwards. It's usually a lot quicker than a power wheelchair, and eventually I learned how to use one of those, which I preferred over the wheelchair because for some reason it made me feel more normal, I guess. I don't know. I can't really describe how it made me feel, but I preferred that over the wheelchair. And it's also got better comfort for legs too, at least for my legs. Another one are walkers. I had a walker when I was a kid, and you can go on my Facebook page and there's a ton of pictures on there with me using my walker. But that's another one. My grandmother actually made me like these little bags to put on the front of my walker, and it was like for Halloween and for the 4th of July and just all of the holidays. No matter what holiday it was, she made one. And she probably had like a generic one in there for the months that didn't have a holiday. But yeah, so I always matched whatever the season it was, or whatever else. Yeah, so I used the walker, but then eventually it got to a point where I didn't use that anymore and I shed it. That's a funny story, actually. We talked about that, I believe, in the first podcast that I did with my mom, where I just left the wheelchair, or left the walker in the kitchen, and Mom came out and she saw that it was in the kitchen and I wasn't, and she's like, "Did you walk in there by yourself?" And I said, "Yeah," and I told her I didn't want to use it anymore. And so we went to the doctor. The doctor said he was fine with it, and that was basically it. But then at school, I always had either a scooter or a wheelchair, depending on how old I was. The older I got, I upgraded. But yeah, I always had one of those when I was in school for safety purposes. When I was younger, and again, there's a lot of pictures of me with these on my legs, but I had braces on my legs. And because one of my legs was a 1/4 inch shorter than the other, I had a lift on my shoe, and I don't have that anymore, and I'm able to walk without it. But my limp is, it's more drastic than it was when I had the lift on my shoe, because I don't have that piece of shoe making up for the difference in my height, or the difference of the height of my two legs. But I didn't want it anymore because I couldn't wear cute shoes. That was my reason, and the doctor said that was fine as long as I was excuse me, as long as I was okay with the drastic limp that I would have. He didn't see a problem with it, so they left it up to me, and I said I didn't care because I wanted cute shoes. Now I own one pair of shoes, so yeah, that whole cute shoe thing isn't really an issue anymore. Okay, so the next thing is a hand reacher. I want to actually talk about that one last because it's the one that I use every day, even now. Well, I use this next one every day too, but I have other assistants with like bath time and things. So a bath bench, which I know that a lot of people use those, even if they're not disabled. They're very useful for people who have problems standing up in the shower, regardless of age or anything like that. So I recommend that if you need one of those, that you get them, because they're very helpful. So the bath bench, very, very helpful. Now ramps, obviously we all know about ramps. Regardless of what your situation is, you go to a store and there's a ramp on the outside of it, so that's not really something I need to explain. But we did have one growing up at the house that I grew up in. And you know, it was made of wood, and it was not cute. I believe that there is a picture on Facebook, or maybe I found a picture and I haven't put it up yet, but there will be a picture on Facebook at some point so you can see the ramp that I'm talking about. And the picture is of me outside. I was standing by my scooter. I was like leaning on it, and it was right outside of where the ramp is. So I'm gonna try to get that picture up. But yeah, so we all know about ramps. My current house does not have a ramp on it, and so I need help walking up and down the steps, which I do have help with, but you know, it's annoying not being able to do it myself sometimes. Now these next things are something that I never used, but they are helpful for a lot of people who have trouble standing up and sitting down, are the toilet bars. And you'll be familiar with those if you've ever seen the accessible stall in restrooms, in public restrooms. They're all over the place, and I use them sometimes in there. My toilets have to be at a certain height for it to be comfortable for me, and that height is pretty much the standard height, so it can't be too high like you would think. I don't know why people who build these bathrooms think that because you're disabled that you need a high toilet, but I'm short. I'm 4'8", and so I'm really short, so getting up on those toilets sometimes are really difficult for me. So to push myself back, I do need to use the bars in the accessible bathroom to do that, but normally I don't have to. But I think that when we were trying to replace a toilet at one point, we discovered that the best height for me was like 12 inches. Or not 12 inches, that doesn't make sense. I don't remember exactly what height it was. I don't think it's, I don't know what the standard, I think it's just the standard height for a toilet. I don't know why I said 12 inches, so scratch that. But yeah, so just toilet bars, again, something that I've never used personally because I couldn't, but they are helpful for people who need them and who are able to use them and who have the upper body ability to do so, which I do not have. Crutches are also something that I've never been able to use because I don't have upper body strength like that. So I've never used them because both my upper body and my lower body are affected by my disability. And yeah, so crutches, I know a lot of you will probably have used crutches at some point in your life. You know, if you broke your leg or something. I've never been able to. One person who uses them on a daily basis that I can think of is Matt Roloff on Little People Big World. He uses crutches on a daily basis to help him get around. I also love his normal mode of transportation, which is a mule. I think that that's so cool that he goes around the farm using his mule. But yeah, so he uses crutches on an everyday basis, but I've never been able to use them for any reason. So if I broke my leg, I was pretty much bound to wherever I was, and unless I had my wheelchair, that was basically it. Now these next two things are something that normal people would use as more of a tool than an actual staple, I guess. I don't know how to say it, but these next two things are something that I have used on a daily basis at one point or another. I don't use this particular one every day anymore because it's difficult for me to do it, but I have in the past. And It's what I call a sock putter oner. I know that it's not called that, but it's supposed to help. It's supposed to assist people in putting on their socks. And there are a few different models. There are ones that I'm able to use, and there are ones that I'm not able to use because of the lack of the range in my ankle. A lot of people who use these need to be able to bend their ankles forward to slip their foot into it. I can't do that. So I need the aid of this next thing to be able to use the sock putter oner, and it's a hand reacher, or at least that's what I've called it my entire life. I don't know if it's called that, but it's like a grabby thing. It has like these little like grippy things at the end of it. Mine actually has a magnet, so like if I drop something on the floor that's magnetized, I can pick it up. You know, like a nail. I don't usually play with nails, but you know, if I drop nail clippers on the floor, and I'm not talking like fingernails obviously when I said nail, but you know, anything metal, I can pick it up. Of course it can't be something huge, but you know, I can still do that. So I use the hand reacher to put the sock on my foot using the sock putter oner, basically. So I put the sock on it, and then I use the hand reacher to put it over the front of my foot. And then the one that I have has like these little strings on the side of it, and then you just sort of like pull it over your heel. It's very difficult for me to do it, so I need to make sure that I have loose socks when I do it. And I don't like loose socks because they try to leave my foot I guess when I'm walking, because it's hard for me to walk in shoes. So when I go somewhere that's like got carpet, I like to remove my shoes if I have to walk. And I don't do that in public, but you know, if I go to my parents' house, I don't wear my shoes in the house because it's easier for me to walk without it. But if I have loose socks, they always want to slide down my foot and I can't pick it back up. So now I don't use the sock putter oner. I just have someone else put my socks on for me. I used to be able to also slip into my shoes without a problem, but that's an issue for me now as well. So I have help with that too. And it's not as if my disability gets worse. You know, as my mom mentioned before, I was the worst that I'll ever be the day that I was born. But things, as you get older, and I'm not very old, but my body is probably older than the average 33-year-old because I can't exercise. I can't do things of that nature. So my body is going to probably be a little bit more worn out at 33 than the average 33-year-old would be. So that's the problem, is that it's just harder for me to move around than it used to be. So I do have help in that way. But the hand reacher, that is my right arm. That is all of my arms, or both of my arms, because I only have two. But yeah, it helps me with everything. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that the majority of the things that I do in my everyday life, I use that thing. And I've had two in my entire life, which goes to prove to you how well I take care of it and how valuable it is to me that at 33, I have only ever had two in my entire life. Even as a child, I understood its benefits. Now, the first one that I had, it was blue. So it was very like kid-like. You know, it was just a fun color of blue. And when I would have a friend over, I would hide it in my closet because I was so afraid that they would play with it. They would see it as a toy. They would like, you know, picking up things off the floor that they didn't need help picking up with it. And I was just afraid that they were going to break it. So I hid it when someone came over because I didn't want anybody playing with it. And I did that my entire childhood, all the way through high school. I did that. Obviously now as an adult, it just kind of lays around, but when I was a kid, it was always in the closet if someone came over. And but I use that thing to pick stuff up off the floor. Eventually I used it to dress myself. That's the big thing. I remember when I was a kid, I had this light switch in my bedroom, and someone, and I believe that it was my grandfather, if I'm not mistaken, made like this little wooden paddle that hung from the light switch, where I could use it to turn my light on and off without having to reach up too far. And I use that thing, and I just thought about that. I haven't thought about that in years, but yeah, I had that too. I forgot about that. But anyway, back to the hand reacher. Yeah, I use a thing for everything, and I probably use that more than I use anything else. So when I was 16, we went on vacation somewhere. It was a family thing, and the blue one that I had broke. Now at this point, I had well outgrown it. I got it when I was a little bitty kid, and of course I grew. I got taller, so using it for certain things became a little bit tougher because I had to bend down farther to use it if I was picking something off the floor, picking something up off the floor or something like that. So it broke, and I'm not sure if it broke on the way there or if it broke when we got there. I don't remember. My parents had to go out, and they had to go find me another one at a store. It was like a disability supply store or something like that, but they got one that was a little bit longer to suit the fact that I had grown since I got the first one, and I still have that one to this day. And that was 17 years ago, and I still have the same one, and I haven't had any trouble with it, and it's great. I love it. And now, of course, they're easy to get everywhere. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them very, very easy, very, very easily. A lot easier than I'm sure you could back then, before shopping online was a huge thing. But yeah, so now as I've grown, I taught myself before I went to college how to dress myself. So I use it to put on my shirts. I use it to put on my pants. I use it to pick things up off the floor. I pretty much use it for everything. Normally I leave it in the bathroom, and then my husband will, if I bring it into the office with me, my husband will come in here and be like, "Why is your hand reacher in here?" And I'll be like, "Well, I had to pick something up off the floor and you were sleeping," or something. And he's like, "Oh, okay." But yeah, so that's basically all of the aid tools that I've used over the years. That's all I can think of right now. If I think of more at a later time, I'll let you know, but I will put pictures and links where you can get these items on my Tumblr. You can find me on Facebook at Oh My Scars, and you can find me on Twitter and Tumblr at Oh My Scars Pod. I hope to hear from you. If you have any questions, comments, or anything like that, please don't hesitate to send me a message. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. So I will speak to you all later, and I hope you have an awesome day. Thank you.